My name is Drew Stevens, and I'm here with myCPE for this very quick assessment on the Secure Act 2.0 and helping you if you're a pre-retiree, a retiree, or you happen to work with individuals that are of retirement age. I want to talk to you very quickly about a couple of things that have occurred at the end of last year, notably the Secure Act 2.0, which is help for those that are entering the retirement age. And there's two primary reasons why this act came up. There's a myriad of other things, but narrowing it down to two things for just conversation purposes is the fact that there is a fear that not enough people are saving for retirement. People are dying in retirement poor because there's not enough retirement savings. And as we all know, the price of healthcare continually increases year by year. So part of the Secure Act is helping for individuals to save better for retirement. One of those ideals, because the Secure Act 2.0 is a very large act. So I'm going to, over the course of time, provide some very brief information, as I am today, on specific areas of the Secure Act 2.0. I gave a summation of this a couple of weeks ago, but now I want to dig a little deeper. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, I will be digging even deeper into specific details. One of the things that the Secure Act 2.0 is aligned with is what's known as RMDs. Many of you may have heard about that. Many of you have heard the initial, but don't know what it means. So I want to help you with that definition right now. Required minimum distribution, or RMDs, are the minimum amount that you can take out of a retirement plan every single year. And the legislation now known as Secure Act 2.0, which was passed at the end of 2022, made some changes to required minimum distributions. It's the cash that's actually coming out of your retirement plan. Now, understand something. You can keep your money into the account, but according to U.S. government regulations, once you hit a very particular age, you then must start taking distributions. And that's what required minimum distributions are. This is where every now and again, I have to say that some of the folks that are in the financial services field do not provide enough of this information for their clients, because what happens is if you don't take those distributions out, believe it or not, you're going to be penalized. So the more information that you have and the more information that you can give to your clients, the better off you're going to be. So here's what's happened as of effective January 1st, 2023. When a person reaches either age 73 or at 72, if they've reached this age by 2022, or a requirement, which was way back a couple of years ago, at age 70 and a half, if they reach that age by January 1st, 2020, they were required to start taking minimum distributions. The year in which a person retires, let's say if at age 73, for example, and if permitted by the person's retirement plan, they would now have to start taking required distributions. Those RMDs will now increase. So this year it's 73, and on January 1st, 2033, the age for RMDs is then going to increase once again to age 75. So you're basically, number one, because we're living longer, you're actually putting more money into your account over the course of time, which is really going to be exceedingly helpful for you. So that in and of itself should be wonderful for you. Now, a couple of other changes that have occurred. Before the Secure Act, the RMD rules required distributions after a person's death to be made within one or two ways. If the owner before the required minimum distribution hit and it applied to them, they actually had to take that distribution within 5 years or so. The second thing is that over the life or the life expectancy of the beneficiary, the spouse in many instances, the distribution would have to be taken, but the distributions would have to begin no later than 1 year after the date of the owner's death. So very similar to sometimes estate taxes to a certain extent, you can actually delay the estate taxes simply because you may want to take a look at what the estate is worth. This happens a lot with trusts. And so with RMDs, one of the things that is now changed, that 5-year rule and even the 1-year rule after somebody has died. So it's changed in a couple of things for you to know. What happens for number one, if the younger spouse dies first? A major benefit of those new rules for the surviving spouse will occur. If the surviving spouse is older than the deceased spouse, under the scenario, the older surviving spouse can now wait until the deceased spouse would have reached the age in which they were required to take their minimum distribution. So that's cool. So if somebody had passed away, and in today's world, if they passed away at say 68 or 70 years of age, but their RMD did not occur until say 72 or 73, now the surviving spouse could wait a couple of years. Another thing that this rule has now changed is it lengthens it from 2 years to now from 5 years, excuse me, I'm so sorry. The RMD, as you're taking your required RMD, it required 5 years originally, if you remember what I said previously. So within 5 years of a person's death, the surviving spouse would have to take RMDs out. It's now changed from 5 to 10 years. The new rule applies regardless of whether the owner dies before the required RMD date. And the option to distribute those funds over the life of the life expectancy of the beneficiary now applies only to specific qualifying persons. For example, a spouse who is the beneficiary of somebody who's passed away, minor children, or should it happen if the person that is the beneficiary is disabled or chronically ill beneficiaries, which is kind of cool. Now, starting in 2024, the Secure Act 2.0 is also going to allow that spouse beneficiary to elect to be treated as the deceased spouse, which means that RMDs can be delayed until the deceased spouse would have reached the age at which RMDs would actually begin. And that's really cool. Now, to a certain extent, as I'm reading this to you and providing you, I'm looking at notes, so I'm not necessarily reading it per se, but as I'm going through this with you, it reminds me of something else. For those of you that are working with clients, or those of you that are unaware, you may or may not know this. Social Security provides an array of benefits. Number one, there's your benefit based upon either before your full retirement age, your full retirement age, or what's now known as delayed retirement age. So say 62, 66, or 67, and ultimately 70. There's a spousal benefit, as an example, that you may or may not be aware of. There's also a divorce benefit. So if you were married to somebody for 10 years or more, and you've been divorced for a number of years, you are entitled to a divorce benefit. But these RMDs also remind me of what's known as a survivor benefit. Many of you may not be aware of this, and I want to lump this into RMDs because it is part of optimizing these required minimum distributions and the overall retirement plan. For a spouse that is a surviving spouse, you would have to be married at least a year. The primary worker must have actually filed for Social Security. And generally speaking, the spouse is entitled, the surviving spouse is entitled to 50% of the benefit equal to of whatever the primary worker's primary insurance amount is. Okay. What can happen with a surviving spouse? Now, this works in one of two ways, because that's what's reminding me of this whole RMD item. If you are a survivor of a spouse and you want to delay those RMDs, you can actually take your you can take your spouse's benefit for Social Security, get that death benefit if you want, not the lump sum, but whatever they were going to get on a month-to-month basis. And dependent upon your age, if you have not reached full retirement age, or if you have, you then can continue to take into account their survival benefit option. And then at some point, if you want to start taking these required minimum distributions, click off your survivor benefit and click on your benefit. You might actually have a whole lot of money. It's what we now are calling a holistic planning tool, number one, and optimizing the required minimum distributions, as well as optimizing Social Security. Just a couple of hints for you and just an overview of RMDs. Listen, a couple of things for you. You want to know a little bit more? Just the other day, I ran a workshop here at myCPE called Social Security Optimization. I have several more of those up and coming. Some of them are even available on demand. Take into account some of those workshops and come and visit with me. And if not, you don't have time, you want to send me an email, send me a quick email at drew.stevens@wisdomtowealth.com, and I'd be more than happy to address it for you. But take a workshop, take it in, and I'll tell you why. Because you see behind me myCPE and what we do here or what they do. And I am not paid to give you this information. I just think it's a wonderful philanthropic effort. For every single credit that you earn at myCPE, they provide a meal for someone in need. And I think that's wonderful. And that is to somebody worldwide. There are thousands of people, millions of people that are starved. And if you take into consideration the amount of individuals who recently perished in Turkey and Syria and the amount of homelessness that's there, these are people in need. And some of these credits from myCPE are going to those destinations. So listen, while you're learning a little bit at the same time about Secure Act 2.0 and Social Security, know that you're helping and benefiting the world. God bless, and I'll see you on another webinar and another short here at myCPE. This is Drew Stevens. Have a wonderful rest of the day.